மடமையிலே அடிமுடியாய் வந்த வரலாறு எனக்கு கேடு பண்ணி இந்த நாகரத்னத்திடம் கிடைத்த வரலாறு நான் அறியும்படி உருவாயி
1000 கப்பல் கொண்டவன் வீகாமன் கொன்று பாரடி அரசை இந்த படையுடன் பரதவன்று நாகதி மனசில் பெற்ற நாமனியுடனே எந்தன் காலில் சிலம்பு தன்னை தந்தை ஆரம்பித்ததாலே ஆனால் கேடவன் இதுதான் நாரன் லட்சம் கொடுத்த வரலாறு அறிந்து கொள்றாமோ
I remember the night vividly. 2006, Mullaitivu. I was at the Mullaitivu north of Sri Lanka, camera in hand, standing among villagers and visitors, watching Kannagi Koothu unfold before me for the first time. Kannagi's story, her rage, her grief, her impossible strength. I had no idea then that this very place would soon witness the final throes of a war already 3 decades long.
எந்த நூலிதையா சீனம் விட்டே முந்த கேளுமையா எந்த நூறுரைக்கில் சோழ நாடே முந்த ஓரிருப்பு பணிகற்குள் தந்தை வேறுரைக்கில் மாசாத்தனார் மைந்தன் கோவலன் பேர் மாதவிக்கும் மையல் ஏனாது பொன் நெவாரித்தும் அவள் கூரை முதல் வைத்திருந்ததினால் சிலம்பு நான் மிக்க வந்தேனையா.
அவர்கள் தங்களுடைய நிலத்துக்கு திரும்புதல் என்ற நம்பிக்கையை தருகிறார். ரெண்டாவது, தங்களுக்கான ஒரு பாதுகாப்பு இருக்கின்றது அவர் நினைக்கிறார். மற்றது கடவுள் மீதான நம்பிக்கை மீதுமான தங்களுடைய எல்லா கருத்துக்களையும் செயற்பாடுகளையும் செய்து கொண்டுற பொழுது எந்த அதிகாரத்தையும் தங்களுக்கு எதிரான எந்த சவால்களையும் அவர்கள் கடந்து செல்லலாம் என்று நம்புகிறார்கள். அதுக்கு ஒரு மார்க்கமாகவும் அவர்கள் அதை கொள்ளுகிறார்கள். வருடமும் வைகாசி மாதத்தில் வருகின்ற பூரணை நாளில் வருகின்ற திங்களில் இந்த அம்மனுக்கு வற்றாப்பளையில் பொங்கல் எடுக்கும். அந்த பொங்கல் நிகழ்வின் ஒரு அங்கமாகத்தான் அதற்கு முன்னுக்கு இந்த கூத்தை அவர்கள் ஆற்றுக்க செய்கிறார்கள்.
Kannagi and Kovalan a young couple from the wealthy Chola country live a comfortable life until Kovalan falls for a dancer, Madhavi, and squanders all his wealth. Years later, regretful, he returns to Kannagi, who forgives him and gives him her only remaining possession, a pair of ruby-filled anklets. To help them start anew, they journey to Madurai in the Pandya kingdom, hoping for a fresh beginning.
அறிமுகத்தை போனது இதனை பழுது பார்த்து நான் தர வேண்டும். தவணை தப்பினால் உன்னை
But when Kovalan tries to sell one anklet, he is mistaken for a thief. The queen has lost a similar one.
போதனை பற்றி வந்த கல்வனுக்கு பொறுமை என்ன சாட்சி என்ன மனிதனுக்கு நியாயம் உண்ட மந்திரியை
கட்டி கட்டியார் சமுறை இதுவே ஆகும். இச்சிலம்பை களவாய் கொண்ட செட்டிதலை கச்சிதமாய் வெட்டிவித்தால் உலகம் அல்ல அனுபவிப்பதாமே.
And is executed without trial. Years later, I saw the same Koothu in a different form in Ambepussa for the Paththini. It is the same that I saw in 2006 in its essence. Only the form was different. The rituals I saw, the Gammaduwa, are post-harvest ceremonies of gratitude.
අපි යහන් කරනකොට පත්තිනිමේනියන්ගේ තියෙනවා දාන් කටිනේ සීලවංශයේ මඩුපුර යාදිනි තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඒ අඹේ උපන්න යාදිනි තියෙනවා. ඒ අඹේ ඉපදිලා අඹේ විදින ඒ ඉන පත්තිනිමේනිය පත්තිනි යාදින්න කියලා යාදිනි තියෙනවා. එන් ඒවා ඉතින් මඩුවේ නටනවා. ඒ ගායනා කරගෙන මඩුවේ නටනවා. ඒ නටලා ඊට පස්සේ අපි අඹ වෙනමස්සේ අඹ දිනවා. අඹ ඉදලා පස්සේ තමයි පත්තිනිමේනිය උපත අපි ගන්නෙ. එතනින් තමයි ගන්න. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි අර එයාගේ ඒ මං කටයුතු අපි පෙළපාලිටි කරන්නේ. ඒ කතා පුවත අපි සංග දක්කලා පෙන්නනවා. ඉතින් අඹ වඩම්මලා මේ පන් රජුරෝ මේ අඹ වෙනට ගෙන්නලා කෙටි ගෙන්නලා ඊට පස්සේ අඹේ විදිනවා. ඒකේ අනුවාසේ කිරිබින්දුව වැටිලා සැකරෙන්නේ යම විදින්න. නල්ලේ එතන මකලා ඊට පස්සේ ඒ අඹේ දිනකොට මధుරාපුරයට මේ විනාශයක් වෙනවා කියලා අඹේ අපේ එතනින් පා කරලා ඊට පස්සේ ඒක නැවත ආය අඹේ කොතන තියෙන්නේ බලන්න ආය සැකරයා ගිහිල්ලා ඉතින් අඹේ තියෙන දැනගත්තට පස්සේ එයා යනවා. ඉතින් අපි ගන්නවා අන්න පත්තිනි උපත කියලා. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි අර මේ අතර දෙනා ගස්ටනයන් යන්නේ. පණ්ඩරජුරෝයි, පත්තිනි මෑණියෝයි, පාලම් කුමාරයයි, බඩලයි. ඒ නිසා අර පත්තිනි මෑණියන්ගේ මේ පණ්ඩරජුරුවන්ගේ විශ්වගේ පායන සලඹ උරුවරන් ගිහිලා තිනවා. ඒක හොයනවා. ඒක තමයි අපි ඉදිරියට පෙන්නන්නේ.
In the Buddhist version, I think it's also very interesting. We have it's called the Panthi Skolmura, which is 35 ritual text, and the first and second kind of parts of the Silappadiharam are very much there in the text, but then it has become very Buddhicized. So actually, Paththini has many births. So like sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 12. So she's born of many things now. Because in the Silappadiharam she's primarily born of a mango, but you have in the Buddhist version mango, but also the dewdrop, flame, a variety of ones like that. And she's also very linked with Buddha, where she's produced as a bodhisattva. So she's somebody who actually wishes to become Buddha in a future life, and so that is how she becomes also a guardian deity of Sri Lanka.
அப்போ அதோட அடுத்த விஷயம் என்னென்றால் கண்ணகி அம்மனோடு சம்பந்தப்பட்ட வரலாறு சிலம்புக்கூறல் என்ற வாய்மொழி காப்பியம் இங்கே இருக்கு. அது தொடர்ச்சியாக இந்த வட்டாப்பளை கண்ணகி அம்மன் பொங்கலோடு தொடர்படுத்தி அது தொடர்ந்து பாடப்படும். அந்த வாய்மொழி காப்பியத்தோடு சம்பந்தப்பட்ட கதை தான் இன்னொரு வகையில் அது பிரதேச ரீதியாக விளங்கப்பட்ட நிலையில் அல்லது பிரதேச ரீதியான மக்கள் அந்த கதையோடு எப்படி தொடர்பு கொள்கிறார்கள், அதை எப்படி விளங்கிக் கொள்கிறார்கள் என்ற அடிப்படையில் இது கூத்தாகவும் நிகழ்த்தப்படுகிறது. அப்போ ஒன்று அடிப்படையில் இது வாய்மொழி ஆற்றுகையாகவும் அதே நேரத்தில் அவைக்காட்டுகையாகவும் இந்த கலைகள் நடத்தப்படுகின்றன. சரிதானே? அப்போ உண்மையில் இந்த கண்ணகி அம்மன் சம்பந்தமான ஒரு நம்பிக்கையும் சடங்கோடு சம்பந்தப்பட்ட நிலவரங்களும் தான் இந்த கூத்து இங்கே நிலைபெறுவதற்கு காரணம்.
But there are stories, if you take the stories are quite similar, and some of the actually stories picking from the Silappatikaram actually, which was Tamil, South Indian Tamil epics, and also of course Sinhalese basically that have basically picked from there, and they have developed a kind of a text called Panthi Skolmura. Based on the Panthi Skolmura, the Paththini cult is basically performs.
It is about the story of Paththini, Kannagi Amman, which comes from, which is also has resonance with the great Tamil epic Chilappadikar, you see. Now, people think that the rituals came from the Chilappadikaram. I take the opposite stand. The rituals are prior to the Chilappadikaram. The Chilappadikaram was the epic that borrowed from the rituals and incorporated them, you see. The ritual, these things deal with the woman who has been wronged once again, you see, wronged because she had lost her husband, Kohesion or Palanga, which means Palaka. Palanga has fallen in love with a courtesan, Madhavi, you see. And all these texts are found in what is called Panthi Skolmura, 35 songbook, massive text edited now by, some time ago actually, by Hevavasa, you see. Man, huge text, that's all written down now, you see. And in order to recover her fortune, she gives her anklet, the golden anklet, is the main symbol that is used in the toil. You can still see a few of these rituals, by the way, down south, where the Salama Santi, where you shake the anklet and bless people. It's still done.
Paththini Devale, the Gammaduwa they conduct, I found very interesting because there was a lot of parallels with some of the performances I saw in Mullaitivu in the Mullaitivu district when the performance of the Kannagi Koothu, because the narrative strand was very similar, where you have the travels of Kovalan to Madurai to sell the anklet.
The Sinhala tradition emphasizes ritual enactment and not a dance form like the Koothu.
மாதவியால் கைகட்டி விடப்பட்ட நிலையில் ஊருக்குள்ளே அவர் இறக்குற ஒரு நிலை உருவாகும். அப்போ அவர் என்ன செய்வார்னா தொடர்ந்து அந்த களரியை சுற்றி வருவார். அப்போ எல்லாரும் கோவலருக்கு கொண்டு என்ன செய்வினம் காசு. இந்த இடம் ஒரு முக்கியமான இடம். அப்போ அழுது தான் நம்ம போடணும். கண்ணகி அழகுக்குள்ள அவை அழுவினம், கோவலர் அழகு அழுகுவினம். அப்போ அந்த சபையையும் கலைஞனையும் அந்த ஆற்றுகையும் பிரிக்கலாம்.
With priests performing the roles of Kannagi and other characters. Interestingly, the figure of Kovalan is never portrayed by a person in the Sinhala tradition. It is always represented by a doll.
ඉරවද මේක රජුළු පිළි අරගෙන බිසව ගිහිල්ලා ඉර කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ මේ මූ මරනවා කුමාරයා. ඉතින් මරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා අහපුවාම ඉතින් අලියතු ගේනවා මරන්නේ නැහැ. මරන්න බෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ එයා ඉස්සර වෙදේ. අඳුර ගන්නවා. මේ ඇතාට වෙදයන් ගලලා තියනවා කියලා. බල්ලෝ ගේනවා. බල්ලොත් එහෙමයි.
අර ඇතාට වෙදයන් ගලුවා සාමාන්‍ය මේ බල්ලන්ට මේ කුමාරයා කාලෙක බල්ලු වෙදකම් කරා යම් දෙයකට සුවයක් ලබා දීලා තිබෙනවා අඳුර ගන්නවා.
ඊට පස්සේ මරුවට ගෙන්නනවා. ඉතින් මරුවත් බාර ගන්නවා. මරුව අරන් ගිහලා කියනවා මේ මරන්න බෑ කියලා මේ කුමාරයාට. මින්වන්ත කුමරුනි ඔබට වරදක් නැත. මට පව සිද්ධ වෙනවා. මාසේ ගමට යන්න කියලා බැම්ම ලෙහෙනවා. මම යන්නේ නැහැ. බෑ කියනවා. මේ අනිත් මිනිස්සු මරන දින මාත් මරන්න කියනවා.
රාජතුමනි වහන්සේ අන පිළි අරගෙන මේක පස්සර මේ යව පස්ස පාති අත්තනේ මේ පාවනෝනේ
මරලෙන්ඩ ඊට පස් දෙනම් සාවනු
හොයයි අලුතැලුමක් ඇද ඉන පිටතායේ අලුතවරාගෙන මුණ පුරායේ රළුගේ අතන්ගෙන සුරත දරායේ
අනුරසකින්බං රජගෙට තායේ රජගෙට තායේ රජගෙට තායේ
ஆடி பாடி நடனமிட சென்னை தனையூர் விழுவாயில் வந்த திரவியமே இப்போ தன்னம் தனியாய் என்னை பிடித்து சாட்டை விளம்பினால் அடிக்க அன்னை அடிமே அடிபட்டு அடிமே தடியினால்
Paththini then going in search, and in the Buddhist tradition, Cohesion is called Palanga, going in search of him. But also very interesting variations, for example, as she has a maidservant, and her maidservant is Kali. So within the Buddhist tradition also, Kali then is much more domesticated in a sense, and subservient to Pattini. And so they go with the maidservant, and then she finds a Palanga who has been killed, and then she weeps over him. And very much those kinds of enactments are very similar to what I saw in the Kannagi Koothu. But most of the time you don't really find these enactments. Those are dying out much more. And so what you have much more in the Gammaduwa is a lot of these kinds of, the dance tradition very much, and drumming. And then at midnight you have the Kapu Mahatya who comes, he kind of becomes embodied as Paththini. So he dresses in a red sari, and there are certain kinds of dances he has where he becomes Paththini, and then her jewels are brought out and things like that.
So one of the predominant element of this traditional ritual theatre as well as the traditional theatre is the male space. Male space in the sense all the impersonators or actors are the male. So the male only perform the female roles. That actually developed the acting style, because the female character imagined by the male, and they pick up or they choose certain gestures and postures, the way to use or rendering the voice and everything. So these theatres have a special female acting designed by the male imagination. I would like to say the kind of male found female body in their own body that actually developed the style of acting. That you can see in Gammaduwa as well as in the Kannagi Koothu Venni, also the very important element.
Now, here is her complaint. When she is going from place to place, search for the husband, and I just give you a few verses. Totiyagem banung asim, Kopalugem banung asing, Kumarugeng ottu asing, Mal madamage himinagiting Gataganarang esamine Ayyo hada paleyane Mal madamage suamine Sapanidido Adametane
පෙට්ටියකටගෙන දාගෙන යන භා මෙලෙත මෙව්වා අරගෙන යනවා අඩුව නොවේ අඩුව වයිලන
Devastated, Kannagi storms into the royal court, breaks open the second anklet, and reveals its rubies, proving Kovalan's innocence.
So he goes, rings the bell of justice, confronts the king, you see, and the king insults her, you see, the worst kind of insult. Salamba soruge ambu mokadakiyane, tane kada tita kavamikiyane, indul tane mata mokadati benne, tane kada rang tatiyagasane. That's a famous event, both in the Silapadikaram and in the folk poems. She tears her breast and the city is engulfed in flames, you see. And those who are spared are the good, those who are punished and burnt and so forth are the bad guys. But one asks the question, what about the bad guys? Didn't they have children? You see, did they have, so there are hidden things. This thing about the revenge of the goddess is found all over in Indian rituals about the goddess.
Oh, me magmantane dulluna. Me paniya. Ma peutaragen now ma sidsat Pattini me. Me mam paligan lone magmantane kada na dul kara. E upanna kale me bosat at raja. Adu dasa piriwaragana කාවේ ගඟ අබෙසින් ගමන් කරන වේලාවට අදාස පිරිවාගෙන ගමන් කරනවා. ඒ ගමන් කරන කුඩා කැටකිරිල්ලියක් පැටවු දෙන්නෙක් මේ වැලිතලාවේ සෙල්ලම් කරනවා. මහරජා සෙල්ලම් කරන වේලාවට මේ අදාස පිරිවරාගෙන මේ බෝසත් ඇතා ගමන් කරන වේලාවට මේ බෝසතලා කියා සිටිනවා නෑ කැටකිරිල්ලිය මා සමග අදාස පිරිවරා මම යන්නා ගමනේ ඒ යන වේලාවට අවසාන මේ දහසක් එන මදුපිරිය යතාට කියා සිටිනවා මේ කැටකිරිල්ලිය අනේ ඇතුනි මාගේ කුඩා පැටවු දෙන්න වැලිතලා සෙල්ලම් කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ මේ පත්තුනි මෑණියෝ කියනවා මම මේ පන් රට ගිනි තියනවා විනාශ කරනවා මමගේ වන්තනේ ඉඳුල් කරා මාතින් ඇල්ලුවා මා මෙච්චර කරන ආපු පුතාත්වය ඔබ විනාශ කරා මේ පන් රට මම ගිනි තියනවා
Overcome with guilt and shame, the king and queen die on the spot. In her grief and fury, Kannagi curses the city.
மற்றும் அவன் கோல் குடி அங்குமே உடச்சுடுவாயாக ரத்தினத்திலிருந்து அக்கினியே புலியர் தருவும் விட்டு மற்றும் அவன் கோல் குடி அங்குமே சுடுவாயாக வான கருமுகளே இந்த மதுராபுரி அக்கினி குளிர ஒரு விடாமலை ஒன்று பொழியுமா அஷ்டலட்சுமி மக்களே சகல செல்வமும் பெற்று சிறப்புடன் வாழ்வீர்களாக.
Tamil Nadu or Kerala, still we don't have any performance of Silapadiharam now. This is also important how this connected and shared culture in one part, that's sometime originate part is hand over to somebody or they are not still keeping, but we are keeping. So as a Sri Lankan culture and heritage, preserving Gammaduwa and preserving Kannagi Koothu is very important for the Asian sake also.
Looking at this Kannagi Paththini, that basically connections under different cultural systems, they basically worship, but there are stories. If you take the stories are quite similar.
සළඹ ඒ ගන්න ගිහින් ආදේ පළඹත් එක අදැහිලත් එක ආවට පස්සේ ওই නවගුමේ මම කිව්වට කියන්නේ ඔතෙන් ඇවිල්ලා දිනවා කියන්නේ නවගුමුවට ඔක්කොමත් ඇවිල්ලා බලනකොට මහාසියට ඔතන ඉන්නකොට කට්ටිය නින්ද ගිහිල්ලා සළඹ තියලා ඇහැල්ලා බලනකොට සළඹ ගන්න බැයිලු. එහෙම තමයි කියන්නේ නාගයෝ මේ සළඹ මට ඒක තමයි නවගුමුව මොකද හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ. ඔව් ඒ ගජවරජුරෝ 12000 ඉස්සරදා කරන් අය එනකොට තමයි මේ ඇදිල් මෙහාට ආවේ.
உள்ளூர் நிலவரத்துக்கு ஏற்ற முறையில் உள்ளூர் மக்கள் தங்களுடைய கருத்துநிலைகளுக்கு ஏற்ற வகையில் கதையாக்கி வச்சிருக்கணும். அது தமிழ்நாடு முழுவதும் இந்தியா முழுவதும் அந்த நிலவரம் இருக்குது. எங்களுக்கும் அந்த பிரச்சனை இருக்குது. எங்களுக்கு இப்போ ஒரு தொல்சீர் காப்பியமாக நாங்கள் சிலப்பதிகாரத்தை கொண்டாடி கொண்டிருக்கிற அதே நேரத்தில் இந்த கண்ணகை சம்பந்தமான கதை யாழ்ப்பாணத்திலும் வன்னியிலும் மட்டக்களப்பிலும் 3 வெவ்வேறு பிரதிகளாக ஆற்றுகை செய்யப்படுகிற ஒரு நிலவரம் இருக்குது.
Is that the Silapadharam is really writing down of a much older oral tradition that existed, right? And there are many variations of it. But so if you look at today, how the Silapadharam narrative can be found in both the Hindu and Buddhist tradition, I would say in the Hindu tradition you have, for example, the Kannagi Koothu, which is, these are all now been written down, but they are, I think, more from like the 60s and 70s really, that they were actually, and of course we do have some ola leaf manuscripts also of these, which are also recited throughout the month of Vaihasi during the Kannagi celebrations.
வந்தாள் வந்தாள் அதிராமி வந்தாள் 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 அன்னகை வந்தாள் மாலை மாறி பொழிந்திட வந்தாள் வந்தாள் பட்டி வந்தாள் வேளாண்மையில் வந்தாள் வந்தாள் மாறான பாண்டியர் மாலை வந்து படமான பொங்கையாள் வந்தாள்.
மதுரை அழிச்சு போட்டு வந்து இலங்கைக்கு வந்து வந்தாறு மூலை என்று கிளம்பி கண்ணியம் கோயில் அது ஆண்டுக்கு ஒரு பையாய் சிங்கலில் மட்டும்தான் நடக்கும். அதில் வந்து அவள் வரும்போது கொம்பு விளையாட்டு நேரத்தில் உள்ள விளையாடியாங்க. அதுக்கு அம்மாளுக்கு வெற்றி கொடுத்து கூயண்டியாங்க. அதில் கோமாரியாகும் மதுரை அழிச்ச கோத்தை அதுலேருந்து பார்த்தா அவளுக்கு கிடம் தெரியல காடு உறைஞ்ச கூறாவளி அங்கே பழைய ஆக்கள் கண்ணால் கண்டிக்காங்க. அவள் காட்சி கொடுத்துக்காவும் இந்த மாதிரி தான் இருக்கிறேன். அதில் ஆண்டுக்கு ஒரு பூஜை வைகாசி மாதம் பூர்ணையில் அன்றைக்கு பூஜை அது மட்டும்தான். மற்ற நேரமெல்லாம் இல்லை, வேறு பூஜை ஒன்றும் கிடையாது.
கிழக்கிழங்கையில் பாடப்படுற கண்ணகி தொடர்பான அந்த பாடல்களில் வந்து இந்த காவியங்கள், ஊர் சுற்று காவியம், மற்றது அந்த கோயிலுக்கு பாடுற அந்த காவியங்கள் எல்லாம் அங்கனாம கடவையை குறிப்பிட்டு பாடுற ஒரு வழக்கு இருக்குது. இந்த வேலம்பிராயெல்லாம் குறிப்பிடலை, மற்ற ஏனைய கோயில்கள் யாழ்ப்பாணத்தில் இருக்க எந்த கோயிலுமே குறிப்பிடப்படலை. அப்படி பார்க்கக்குள்ள அப்போ அங்கனாம கடவை வந்து ஒரு பழமையான கோயிலாக இருந்திருக்க வேணுங்கிற ஊகத்துக்கு நம்ம வர முடியுது. அதனால் அது வந்து முந்தின கோயிலாக இருக்கிறதுக்கான ஒரு வாய்ப்பு இருக்குது. சிலப்பதிகார செய்தியினடியாக கஜவாகு மன்னன் ஊடாக எடுத்து வந்ததாக சொல்லப்படுது. ஆனால் கஜவாகு மன்னன் எங்கே வந்து இறங்கினார், எப்படி போனார் என்ற செய்தி எதுவுமே எங்களுக்கு எவிடன்ஸாகவும் இல்லை, அது பற்றிய பதிவுகளும் இல்லை. ஆனால் ஓரலாக சொல்லப்படுது அவர் வந்து சம்பு துறைமுகத்தில் இறங்கினார். சம்பு துறைமுகத்திலிருந்து அங்கேருந்து அவர் ஊர்வலமாக ஒவ்வொரு இடமா நின்று போகும்போது அப்படி போய்தான் அன்றாதபுரம் வழியாக அவர் வன்னி பகுதி அந்த பாதை வழியாக போய் அன்றாதபுரத்தை சென்றடைஞ்சார் அப்படி என்று சொல்லப்படுது. இது ஓரலாக இருக்கிற செய்தி. இந்த செய்தியின் அடியாகத்தான் இந்த அங்கனாம கடவை சொல்லப்படுறதும் யாழ்ப்பாணத்தின் வழியாக வந்ததாக சொல்லப்படுற கதையும் இருக்கு.
Ganato Besekar has done a lot of historical research and he actually disputes that whole story. He says that's really a myth, or actually it's a colonization myth in a way. And his argument is actually that the worship of goddess Paththini came much later, maybe around the 10th century, with migrants from Kerala. And so they then populated different parts of the central province. And so he says this story was then adapted to make sense of this kind of their settlement in the country, of saying that it was brought by a Sinhala king. But he really disputes lot of those kinds of references. But that is the standard story that is said everywhere, not just in the south, but even north and east. Everybody will say, you know, Gajabahu the first brought it, and I mean there will be temples now. Even in the east, there were temples that said that he actually visited that temple with a sandalwood statue of Kannagi and donated it.
ஏன்னா மக்கள்கிட்ட நிறைய கதைகள் இருக்கு. இந்த மக்கள்கிட்ட வழங்குற கதைகள் எல்லாமே ஒரு விஷயத்தை தான் தெளிவுபடுத்துது. பல்வேறு காலகட்டங்களில் இந்த வழிபாடு வந்து கடத்தப்பட்டிருக்கு. அது யாழ்ப்பாணத்தின் ஊடாக மட்டும் இல்லை, கிழக்கு கரை கூடாக வந்திருக்கு, வடக்கு பகுதி கூடாக வந்திருக்கு, தென்பகுதி கூடாகவும் வந்திருக்கு. ஏன்னா இந்த சிங்கள மக்கள் மத்தியில் காணப்படுற அந்த 12,000 போர் வீரர்களை கரிகாட் சோழன் வந்து இலங்கையிலிருந்து அணகட்டுறதுக்காக கொண்டு போனார்ன்றதும், அதை வந்து கஜவாகு மன்னன் மீட்கிறதுக்கு போய் இன்னும் 12,000 சேர்த்து 24,000 போர் வீரர்களை திரும்பி கொண்டு வந்து அவர் அங்க குடியமர்த்தினார்னு சொல்லப்படுது.
So I think for me what's interesting is the kind of stories different devotees as well as practitioners in those temples say about the origin myths of those temples, and I think that has become it's very much the story that Gajabahu brought it, and the first parahara began when he paraded the anklet, and along with all the prisoners he brought, and also the bowl relic of the Buddha, and also symbols of the other guardian deities of who have become the deities of Sri Lanka. So I think that to shake that myth will be very difficult, because I think despite Gannatu basically writing extensively on and trying to show that it doesn't match in terms of time period, because sometimes a lot of people collapse this kind of footnote that you have in the Silappadiharam that talk about a king from Lanka coming for the consecration of the first Kannagi temple in Kerala.
These Kerala, Sri Lanka and India, so that is actually what I am thinking is the connected history, or we can't deviate Sri Lanka even culturally, also geographically. It's not a different land from South Indian area, so we can take Sri Lanka as a part of pan South Indian phenomenon.
So it's as Professor Indrapala was talking about, Karthikeya Indrapala, this is a larger cultural actually region. As you said, Tamil Nadu, basically Kerala and Sri Lanka, it's a pan cultural sort of structure where you have similarities as well as actually sort of differences, where of course certain cultural localized there, some of the major practices that are coming from outside and so on. So that's a very interesting thing. It shows the incorporation as well as the tolerance of others' beliefs and so on and so forth. It's a huge, I think, cultural region where you have so much of integration, so much of incorporations going on actually.
So if we study Gammaduwa or even the Kannagi Koothu or sort of another related performance about Silappadiharam, not only Sri Lanka, even outside of Sri Lanka, is witnessing still today how these cultures are connected and interlinked and shared, and the people also, whatever language today speaking is a different thing, but what is their previous things and their forefathers and the generations, that also the main question behind this. So for me, it's not only the performance sake, even the historical evidence sake also, this Gammaduwa and Kannagi Koothu is important to think about the past Sri Lanka, or how Sri Lanka and southern India, especially connected, because we have another imagination of very clearly want to connect to the North India, but the evidences in Sri Lanka, even all the aspects of architecture, sculpture, painting or dance and everything, it's very much connected to Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra, and everything is still registering the southern Indian connection with Sri Lanka is there.
பூம்புகாரும் அதை சுற்றி இருக்கிற இடங்களில் கிடைச்ச ஆதாரங்கள் எல்லாமே வந்து இந்த சிலப்பதிகார கதை நடந்த கதைங்கிற ஒரு இதை ஏற்படுத்துது. இதுன்ற தொடர்ச்சியாக தான் மங்களாதேவி கோட்டத்துக்கு கோவிந்தராசனார் நடக்கிறார். பூம்புகார்ல இருந்து மங்களாதேவி கோட்டத்துக்கு அவர் அந்த கண்ணகி நடந்த பாதைகளை தான் போகணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி தொடங்கி அவர் நடக்கிறார். இப்போ இதன் அடுத்த கட்டமாக மங்களாதேவி கோட்டம் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்படுது. மங்களாதேவி கோட்டம் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டதை தொடர்ந்து தமிழகத்தில் என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு சொன்னால், அந்த மங்களாதேவி கோட்டம் கண்டுபிடிக்கப்பட்டது, பூம்புகார் அகழாய்வு, இது எல்லாமே சேர்ந்து இன்னும் மக்கள்கிட்ட வந்து சிலப்பதிகாரத்தை வந்து அந்த முழுமையாக நம்புகிற ஒரு தன்மையை ஏற்படுத்துது.
In the 12th century, because that was the time when Shaivism was very closely associated with Buddhist kings and Buddhist temples and so on. And so it's more likely that the second Gajabahu was closely associated with the worship of Kannagi, and that got mixed up with the first Gajabahu. So the Gajabahu when then referred to in the colophon of the Silapadhyayam, not in the actual text, but only in the colophon, which could be a later one, is not necessarily the first one. இன்னும் ஒரு விஷயம் நீங்கள் கவனித்திருப்பீர்கள் உங்களுடைய ஆய்வுகளில், அதாவது மகாயான பௌத்தம் கிழக்கிழங்கையில் சிறப்பாக மற்ற இடங்களிலும் கூட பெருமளவிற்கு செல்வாக்கு பெற்றிருந்தோம். இந்த மகாயான பௌத்தத்தில் ஒரு போதிசத்வர் பத்தினி இந்த தாரா வழிபாடும் பத்தினி வழிபாடும் ஒரு காலகட்டத்தில் வேறுபாடு இல்லாமல் கலந்து விட்டது போல எனக்கு தெரியும். பின்னர் மகாயான பௌத்தம் இலங்கையிலிருந்து அழிந்து போக பத்தினி வழிபாடு தொடர்ந்திருக்கின்றது. அதனால இலங்கையின் காவல் தெய்வங்களாக 4 திசைகளுக்கும் 4 தெய்வங்கள் பல காலமாக கருதப்பட்டு வந்தது. அந்த தெய்வங்கள் ஒன்றாக பத்தினியும் பிற்பட்ட காலத்தில் சேர்க்கப்பட்டது.
මුලාස කියන ජනප්‍රවාද වෙන කතාව මිසක් මේ සලඹන වෙන මොකද ඉන්ස්ක්‍රිප්ෂන් සෙල්ලිපිද එහෙ නෑ. එතකොට නමුත් අර පොතේ තියෙන නුවර යුගයේ ලියවිච්ච කවි පොතක් තියෙනවානේ. කැන්ඩියන් පීරියඩ් එකේ ලියවිච්ච කවි පොතේ තියෙනවා කෑලියපුර නුවර කියලා. එතකොට රෝහණ රාජධානියනේ අපි අයිති වෙන්නේ. අපි කැන්ඩියන් නෙමෙයි, අපි රෝහණ රාජධානිය ඒක අනුරාධපුර යුගයේ දක්වා යනවනේ. කවුද දේවානම් පීතිස්ස රජුගේ කාලෙත් මෙහෙම ආගම රාජධානිය රුහුණේ තිබ්බා කියලා කියනවා. එතකොට ඒ රුහුණේ තිබිච්ච ඉතිහාසයත් එක්ක මේ ගැලපෙනවා මේ සිදුවීම් ටික. කොමාරි ඔය කාවේරි රිවරයකට ගියේ අපේ මේ මෙහි දකුණේ, අපි දැන් දකුණ කියලා සවුත් ඒරියා කෙනේ හඳුන්වන්නේ. අර තමිල්නාඩු වගේ අපි සදර්න් ප්‍රොවින්ස් එක අපේ මේ ලයික් තමිල්නාඩු. ඉතින් සමහර මිනිස්සු සැරයි සහ කාවේරි වලින් ගෙනාපු මිනිස්සු ඉන්න ගමක් කියලා මෙහි ගමුත් තියෙනවා. එතන වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් පත්තිනි දේවාලය. මේක තමයි ලංකාවේ ඉන්දියාවෙන් පත්තිනි සලඹ ගෙනල්ලා ගජබා රජුරන්ගේ කාලේ හදපු පළවෙනි කෝවිල තිබිච්ච පන්සල. මේකට කියන්නේ කෝවිල් ගොඩාන පත්තිනි රජ මහා විහාරය කියලා. ඒ කෝවිල් ගොඩාන කියන්නේ උස්බිමක් ටිකක් ඉස්සුණු පොඩි කඳු ස්වභාවයක් මේ භූමිය මේ වටේම ඉඩම් වලට වඩා උසයි. ගොඩාන කියන වචනේ තේරුම තමයි ගොඩ කියන්නේ උස්බිම කියන එක. එතකොට කෝවිල් ගොඩාන කියලා නම වැටුනේ ඇයි කියලා හිතනකොට අර ගම්වාසීන්ගේ පැරැන්නන්ගේ තියෙන විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා ජනශ්‍රුතියේ එන කාරණාවක් තියෙනවා මෙතන තමයි පත්තිනි දේවාලය තිබ්බේ කියලා. ඒක වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. මොකද මේ ගමට කියන්නේ කෑලියපුර කියලා. එතකොට අශෝකමාලා සාලිය කුමරු දෙන්න හම්බ වෙන කෑලිය පුරය මේ ගම විදිහට අපි සලකනවා රුහුණට සම්බන්ධ නිසා. ඊළඟට නීල මහයෝධයා වාසය කරලා තියෙනෙත් මේ ආසන්න ගමක. ඒ නිසා ඔහු ඉන්දියාවට ගොස් පත්තිනි සලඹ සහ වෙනත් පූජා භාණ්ඩ ගෙනල්ලා මේ ස්ථානයේ තැන්පත් කළා කෝවිලක් ඉදි කළා කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා. අපේ ජනශ්‍රුති කියලා කියන්නේ මිනිස්සු අතරින් එන මේ ජනප්‍රවාද ඒවට අදාළව මේ ස්ථානය සම්බන්ධයෙන් එහෙම විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා. අදටත් වර්තමානයේ බොහෝ ගම්වැසියෝ ඇවිල්ලා මේ ස්ථානයේ පූජාවල් තියලා පත්තිනි මෑණියන්ට බාරහාර ඔප්පු කරනවා. ඊළඟට මේ ගම්මානයේ පුරාම තියෙනවා මේ ගඩොල් බ්‍රික් සහ මේ මැටි භාජන මොනවාද මේ කියන්නේ ටෙරාකොටා නටබුන්.
අදවන්නෝ දෙනේ ඔබ මෑණියන් වහන්සේට මේ පුද කළා වූ පුද පූජාව බාරගෙන මේ පිම්පෙත් අනුමෝදන්ව ඔබ මෑණියන් වහන්සේ පතනා වූ මතු පුරුෂාත්මයක් ලබාගෙන බුද්ධත්වය ළඟා කර ගන්නාසේක්වා ඔබ මෑණියන් වහන්සේගේ කීර්ති නාමයට පස්වාන් දාසකට ආවඩා යුබෝ වෙත්වා යුබෝ වෙත්වා යුබෝ වෙත්වා.
The main text on the worship of goddess Paththini primarily, but there's also some chapters on the goddess Kannagi have been written by Professor Garnath Obesekar, but this was a research he was doing primarily in the 1950s and 60s, and the book really came out towards the end of the 70s, where he says that this worship of Paththini is dying out. But what became very clear to us is that it's not dying out at all, that it is very resilient, it has continued, and I think the war has also got a lot to do with it in the north and the east, where I think in a context where people didn't have recourse to justice, they were so despairing, a lot of people turned to religion again, and I think especially the sort of more localized deities, and so I think Kannagi Amman is also very much part of that, but also the Kadalaji Amman and Mari Amman became very important, and also a lot of the some kind of oracles and especially women oracles who were associated with that worship became very important. Similarly, I think in the north, for example, there's work that's been done to show how Thuku Kavadi has also been revived, because a lot of people who were tortured would pray to the goddess, and then when they got out they would fulfill those vows, and I think in Vatrapale now Thuku Kavadi has increased hugely. And similarly in the south we came across situations where sometimes during the JVP uprising that somebody's husband was disappeared, and then she took to becoming a priestess of Paththini, that she said she got the Varama and then she had become a priestess. There's another context where this whole family was wiped out by the army because supposedly one of the sons was in the JVP, but they just came and killed everybody in the house except for the father and the youngest daughter who were out of the house. And the youngest daughter then started saying that Paththini was speaking through her, and she would often say that when I am older, I will take revenge on these people who killed my family. And interestingly, both she and the father then started becoming oracles in a sense.
கண்ணகை வந்து பாண்டியன்கிட்ட நீதி கேட்கிறார்களாம், இது நாடாளும் மன்னருக்கு நல்லதோ மோடா என்று கேட்குறாங்க. அப்போ நெடுச்செழிய பாண்டியனை பார்த்து கேட்குற கேள்வியை கேட்பதன் மூலம் அது ஒரு கலை சார்ந்த கேள்வியாகத்தான் நாங்கள் பார்ப்போம். ஆனால் அந்த கேள்வி உள்ளார்ந்தத்தில் இந்த சமூகத்தில் தங்களுக்கு எதிரான சவால் விடும் சக்திக்கு எதிரான கேள்வி தான். அப்போ மற்ற கண்ணகிங்கிற பாத்திரத்தை அவர்கள் உள்ளெடுக்கிறதே அப்படித்தான் ஒரு விஷயம்தான். எல்லா விஷயத்திலும் கையறு நிலைக்கு உட்பட்டு சமூகத்தில் எல்லா பிடிமானங்களும் இழந்து அதிகாரத்தாலும் ஒடுக்குமுறைகளாலும் முற்றுகையிடப்படுகின்ற பொழுது அதை உடைத்து கொண்டு வந்த ஒரு பாத்திரமாகவும் அதை தனித்து எதிர்கொண்ட ஒரு பாத்திரமாக தான் கண்ணகி இருக்கிறது. இப்போ கண்ணகி அவர்கள் தெரிவு செய்வதே அப்படியான ஒரு பண்பாட்டு நெருக்கடியை எதிர்கொள்ளுகின்ற மனநிலையிலிருந்து நம்ம பார்க்கலாம்.
அன்னம் பறவை குயிலாடி பாடி நடனமிடும் சென்னை சூழ் விழு வளையில் விளைந்த திரவியமே, உன்னை தன்னம் தனியே விடுத்து சாட்டை விரம்பால் அடிக்க அடிமேய அடிவட்டு தடியினால் அடிவட்டு சதைதோகோல் புரிந்திட சதிரங்கள் துதி பொங்க தருமங்கள் அறியாத சதிகாரம் நடுவோர்கள் தங்கை வாழினால் எந்தன் அங்கம் விளக்க போற சிவனே, கொடைவா தகம் செய்ய கொடிய வீணை செய்தேனோ குதித்திட குருதி கொப்பிழித்திட இழுத்தன்னை கொலைகார மடுவோர்கள் கொண்டு போக விதியோ, கவிதா இந்த பணத்திலே கொண்டு போறார் கலைமான் மறைவன்றி கரடி வகுவாய் கண்டேன் கனதும்பை அணிகின்ற சிவன் மைந்தர் அருள் கந்தர் எனை வந்து துணை தந்து எனை ஆழ்வாய் சிவ